Welcome to the Oral History Podcast, which features stories from the oral history website voicesofoklahoma.com, where Oklahomans have given generously of their time to tell their life story for present-day listeners and for the generations to come. Our entire collection is available at voicesofoklahoma.com. By subscribing to our podcast, you will be notified of new Oklahoma oral history podcasts. So now listen to another interesting storyteller from voicesofoklahoma.com.
Geoffrey Standing Bear is the principal chief of the Osage Nation. He is the great-grandson of Osage Principal Chief Fred Lookout. Before his election, Chief Standing Bear practiced law for 34 years. He concentrated on federal Indian law, receiving national recognition by Best Lawyers in America, Oklahoma Super Lawyers, and a listing with Chambers and Partners. He served as Assistant Principal Chief of the Osage Tribe from 1990 through 1994 and was a member of the Osage Nation Congress from 2010 to 2014. While a practicing lawyer, he was involved in the first Indian gaming cases in Oklahoma, representing the Muskogee Creek Nation, Seneca Cayuga Tribe, and several other tribes. He was also general counsel to the Oklahoma Indian Gaming Association. The book, Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grant, has focused attention on the Osage Nation. In the 1920s, the richest people per capita in the world were members of the Osage Nation in Oklahoma. After oil was discovered beneath their land, they rode in chauffeured cars and lived in mansions. Then, one by one, the Osage began to be killed. As a young man, Chief Standing Bear heard his family talk about the Osage wealth and the fear of being killed. In his oral history interview, Chief Standing Bear talks about the filming of the movie Killers of the Flower Moon. Listen to Chief Standing Bear on the Oral History website and podcast, voicesofoklahoma.com.
My name is John Erling, and today's date is April 7th, 2023. Chief Standing Bear, would you state your full name, please?
Geoffrey Standing Bear. I'm Principal Chief of the Osage Nation.
Your birth date?
May 11, 1953.
Your present age?
I am going to be 70 here on May 11, 2023.
All right. And where are we recording this interview?
We are in Pawhuska, Oklahoma, which is about in the center of Osage County, Oklahoma.
All right. We have to talk to you about your last name, Standing Bear.
Mm-hmm.
How does that come about?
Well, my great-grandfather was Luther Standing Bear, and he was chief up at Rosebud with the Lakota Nation. My grandfather was born in Porcupine on the Pine Ridge Reservation, and he, during the 1920s, my grandfather, Eugene, went to Haskell Indian School in Kansas and became good friends with my Osage family and came down here. And it turns out that my great-grandfather and great-grandmother, the Osage, went to Carlisle Indian School in Pennsylvania, as did my great-grandfather Luther when they were all children. So they all knew each other from those days. Plus, the Osage and Lakota languages are related languages. We're Southern, the anthropologists would say Siouan, which would include the Omaha, Ponca, Kaw, Quapaw with the Osage. And in those days, I was told in the 1920s, the Lakotas and the Osage could understand each other much better.
Your education, where did you go to grade school?
Montecasino, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then I went to junior high at Marquette. My grandmother and my mom and dad, my mom was a convert to the Catholic Church. My mom and dad were Catholics. The Roman Catholics are big here in the Osage because of our relationship in Kansas and Missouri, especially with the Jesuit order. But anyway, that's another story. Then I went to Bishop Kelly High School, graduated in 71, went to the University of Oklahoma just when Barry Switzer became coach, and I think I went to class. I can't quite remember. It was mostly football stadium. Then after miraculously graduating from University of Oklahoma, I went to the University of Tulsa Law School.
We didn't establish your parents' names.
My mom is Barbara Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T. She's from She's a little bit Muskogee. She's a member of the Muskogee Creek. She's passed away. She was born and raised north of here, about 15 miles in the community of Heard, next to the town of Bowering, which is, you really got to know your territory if you know where those places are. Then my father, George, was born east of Pawhuska on the Lookout family farm. He went to University of Tulsa. My mom was a nurse eventually, so they both, in the late 40s, moved down to Tulsa. My dad ended up at Douglas Aircraft and McDonnell Douglas and, the North American Aviation. And it was all aerospace in Tulsa, which is a good argument to bring aerospace back as a priority. And next to our casino in Tulsa, you'll see the nation purchased old air park, and we didn't really know what to do with it until Dr. Jamie Jacobs at OSU and others said, let's move more into the drone business, and we're part of that process.
But you told me that your father, George, was also involved in the Tulsa Press Club?
He was.
How did that come about?
I don't really know. I was in high school, and he brought me down to the Tulsa Press Club. It was in the Mayo Hotel at the time. He always, I brought all these posters I got during the 60s, black and white posters of Sitting Bull and other famous Indians, and he had me put them on the walls for the Little Bighorn Party. When he was part of the Tulsa Press Club, he got them all to do the Little Bighorn Party to celebrate the Custer Massacre by the Lakotas and Cheyennes. And so one thing I learned as a young guy about the press at that time is they liked to have a good time. They knew how to drink. There was always a piano player somewhere. They are underpaid as journalists. I learned that just hanging out in that world. I don't know. It's probably changed by now. I guess all journalists are very well paid.
I don't think so.
Yeah, but there's always a piano player somewhere. So my grandpa told me, I came down here during the 1920s, a poor Sioux boy, and I ran into your Osage family, which is my family, and they had a lot of money because of the oil. And he married into the family, and my father, George, was half Lakota and half Osage. And Standing Bear came with that. And get this. So one day in high school, I asked my grandpa, why does Dad have it Standing Bear one word? You have it one word, but your father has it two words. He said, well, when I came to Pawhuska, I got an allowance from all this oil money, your grandma. I went to the First National Bank in Pawhuska, and I gave him my name, Standing Bear, two words. And the banker said, you can't do that. It has to be one word. And so I changed it. And I said, Grandpa, are you telling me you changed our last name because of a banker in Pawhuska, Oklahoma? And he goes, yes. I said, well, that's it. I'm going to go back to two words. So on my high school diploma and from then on, it's two words.
It's probably what he had to do to get a loan, though, right?
Well, you hadn't need a loan. Back in those days, the statistics show every Osage man, woman, and child was receiving the equivalent of $400,000 per year tax-free. There was no loans going on, and there was no financial education going on. There was no none of that financial literacy what they talk about now, which we are now implementing through here. Can you imagine if we knew how to open bank accounts for ourselves instead of through the Guardian system? Or if we knew how to get more than 1/8 or 3/16 royalties, if we did what a lot of companies do with other countries, joint ventures, 5149, But instead, Continental Oil Company, now Conoco, now ConocoPhillips, Phillips Petroleum, Getty Oil, all these large companies started right here.
The 400,000, where was that coming from?
Oil and gas royalties. But as I was saying, can you imagine that's based on 1/8 to 3/16, and the on a royalty, which went to what we call a headright. And a headright was born out of federal legislation in 1906. We bought this reservation with our monies from Kansas, our sale of our lands. And we bought this reservation, 1.5 million acres almost, from the Cherokee. And so when we bought it, it was subject decades later to what they call the allotment process, where the lands of the native tribes were divided into individual parcels. And the Osage were no exception except for the minerals. And James Bigheart, our chief, and the council negotiated a special and unique situation where we maintained ownership of the mineral communally, of the minerals, oil, gas, coal, not coal, well, coal if we were finding any, gravel, we do that. So when he did that, they said, well, how are we going to distribute money from that mineral estate? And so every one of the 2,229 Osages received what's called a headright, which is the right to receive income from this mineral estate, which is managed by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, a federal agency, which it is to this very day. Nowadays, because of the history of the Osage, some of that is in that Killer of the Flower Moon movie. The book is very well researched, documented by David Gran. You will see why today, of the 25,000 Osage people, only 5,100 have an interest in a headright. Some have two, most have a very small fraction of that 5,100, but the other 20,000 have none, zero. And John, let me tell you what was really crazy is until 2006, 100 years after the 1906 allotment, our right to vote and hold office in our own government was determined by how much property, that being a headright, that you owned. So if you were 18 and over and were 21 and older and had 3 headrights, you got 3 votes. If you had none, you got none. So 80% of the Osage people were disenfranchised because our political rights were melded with our property rights. And of course, the property rights were under terrible stress. And you can imagine how it translates politically, and vice versa.
Who determined that the voting was to be determined by how many headrights?
The Bureau of Indian Affairs, through federal regulation, using the 1906 Allotment Act as a legal basis.
You are now in your 3rd term, right?
Yes.
As the Osage Nation Principal Chief. You were re-elected last June 2022. Can you continue to serve?
Under our system, we can run for 5 consecutive terms. I do not plan to run again. I ran this 3rd term to complete or initiate some projects which we need to keep pushing on, and that would be primarily our it's called a primary residential treatment program, facility and program to address the issues of alcoholism, diabetes, stress, anxiety. That is an area that we're going to challenge head on. It takes dedicated people we're going to get more, we're recruiting. We've got to grab hold of this issue. And it's several generations of work ahead, as it has been several generations of trauma to get this far. So we have a higher level of those activities than most of society, which is all suffering. But I can tell you, studies by health experts presented in this very room to me showed 8 years ago that the life expectancy of an Osage here, living here in Pawhuska, our tribal capital, the life expectancy here is 10 years less than a similar situated Osage in Tulsa, 60 miles away, because of stress, obesity, they list in the studies show your life expectancy is cut just living here. And so not only are we going to do this primary residential treatment facility, we have a transitional facility related to it, adolescents, men, women, and then our big project we're heading into, and unfortunately interest rates are getting higher every month. We've got to go ahead and move past this clinic that we have into a much larger facility, and we've cleared out land and purchased land here in Pawhuska for that. That is really what we're looking at. So that's why I ran for a third term, and also to make sure what we call our food sovereignty initiatives are sustained. We just have done some remarkable work on being able to feed ourselves after learning during the pandemic in March of 2020. The food supply chain broke down completely here. So we have a 19,000 square foot butcher house. We have 2,000 head of cattle. We have 250 bison. We purchased 43,000 acres from Ted Turner. All that was for casino monies. And then it was boosted at just the right time by what's called the CARES Act funds, federal monies, and then the ARPA. So working with my legislature, we thought, okay, we're moving the casino monies, federal monies, food sovereignty. We got to feed ourselves. We have beef, we have cattle we couldn't use because they're not USDA certified at the time. They are now. They are. We have state and federal inspectors in our plant. We then moved with that same combination of funding to have greenhouses. We have 44,000 square feet of greenhouses, and we have food processing, 9,000 square feet, aquaponics. And then what they're doing, they being the Osages and other employees that are working with us, they've worked the internet to where step by step you can get online and order your food from both harvest land or greenhouses and from our butcher house, and have a delivery point, pick it up. They're doing great work, the younger people. I'm so impressed. And I got to thank right now Oklahoma State University, University of Arkansas, University of Missouri, Kansas State, Kansas, and my favorite federal agency now, USDA. Those folks are great. Now, Bureau of Indian Affairs, that's a whole other story.
Yeah. Pawhuska, this is where they had the $1 million elm.
Right next door. It's gone, but there's a plaque, sandstone, built right there, right next door here.
You should tell them why that was such an important tree.
Well, that's where the auctions were held for our oil and gas, and many a famous oil tycoon was there bidding for leases and paying a bonus to the federal government for the benefit of the Osage headright owners. And that continued during the 1920s into the 30s. And that was a center of activity.
Frank Phillips was one of them, wasn't he?
Oh, yes. Mr. Marland was another one.
E.W. Marland?
Yeah. My great-grandfather Fred Lookout was principal chief for much of that time. And my grandmother, Mary Lookout Standing Bear, was his translator. So she lived with us and my family. So I got to hear a lot of her views from Mr. Marlin and by Mr. Marlin. It's things he thought and said, but primarily Mr. Phillips. Mr. Phillips spent a lot of time here, I understand. He just spent a lot of time with the Osage one-on-one. And
So did that become the basis then of Phillips Petroleum?
yes. Oh, yes.
What he purchased here at this $1 million tree?
Yes. And many other oil companies.
Okay. Do you think that he really learned to appreciate the Osage and he liked them? He wasn't just doing it because he was buying, or maybe it's not an important question.
What, was he a friend to
Yeah.
the Osage? I understand that he was a friend, and this is secondhand. But of course, it was business.
You're the great-grandson of the Osage Principal Chief Fred Lookout,
Yes.
and your wife's name is Julie. Chief Lookout's wife
Was Julia.
was Julia, and was the great-granddaughter of Chief Pahuska, for whom the Osage County seat was named.
Well, that's the way I understand it.
Right. Well, that's where I get off the internet.
I didn't write that, so.
So it may not be true.
Well, who knows? Except, I guess you could genetically test all of us. I understand people are learning all kinds of things on the internet about who's related to who. But I take it at the face value. What is the common denominator besides the Osage being here is the federal government. And I want to point out the building we're in, right on the outside. As you go up the steps, it's carved in to the facade. The year it was dedicated, 1922. So we're sitting right here in this room. This was the superintendent's office. And in our language, superintendent means long knife, mahita. That image should tell you a little bit about our relationship. And I've got to tell you, and your listening students, that the situation continues in a lesser extent today, but the oil and gas is still controlled mostly by the federal government. But the accounts of the individual Osage Indians, the monies from those oil and gas production leases was held by the government here. And just as a quick example, I drove my grandmother up here when I was in high school during the 70s or late 60s. And right here in this very room, she and I sat here, and I said, we need to buy a lawnmower with her money, of course. The superintendent said, okay. And so he talked to us a little bit, how you doing, Mary, and all this. Then sent us right across the hall, right here, to the government lawyer. They call him the solicitor. And they're in there, and they did essentially credit counseling. So me and her went in there for a while. Then they sent us down the hall and met some other federal bureaucrats. Some of them were Osages that worked here. We ended up right back here in this room a couple hours later after getting our checklist. And superintendent called down at the Otasco store and talked to some man I never met and said that, well, Mrs. Standing Bear wants to buy a lawnmower for her grandson. And yes, that sounds like a good lawnmower. No, I think that one would be too bad. I sat there and watched this man negotiate with someone I never knew. My grandmother sat there. Remember, English was her second language. Okay? She was Osage first, all the way. So I watched this going on, and I'd seen it all my life, but now I'm in high school, and I'm starting to think, this is a little odd. And so we ended up leaving this room, going down those front steps, out of this building, downtown Pawhuska, and some fella that worked there put that lawnmower in the back of in the trunk. In those days, vehicles were a little bit larger. And we drove off, and that's how we got the lawnmower. Now, we don't know how much was paid for it. We don't know anything except the superintendent knew somebody at a store that sold lawnmowers, and they made a deal. And that's just the way it is.
So that was a good example.
That's a small example of the system that's been in place for over 100 years. And that breeds dependence on the federal government. That breeds lack of understanding of the financial systems and other social economic systems. And it is, in this country, can you imagine that it's not uncommon outside of our community for other communities in this country to lack the understanding of how this works and how can you plow away day in, day out and watch, like we've done here, watch our people who do choose to work and understand, watch their income disappear because the systems are still in place. And the new systems, which is just working or creating your own business, the stress they're under now, it's like, okay, now we're trying to get hold of our own property, become more self-sufficient, and we're also part of the larger economic system, which we gave everybody here last year a 10% raise because with inflation, this is 2023, we're making this recording, it's like taking 10% of your paycheck, cutting it off and just throwing it away. And that's the situation we're in. So we're caught in this time period where we're trying to break away with what little oil and gas we have. Thank goodness we have that, because in 1906, when this crazy system was set up officially, our people, the Osage, like many other tribes, if not all, had come from a long journey in Kansas, and we were driven out of our homelands in Missouri in 1808, 1810. And in that journey from here to Kansas to here, we lost 90% of our people.
Yeah.
So thank goodness we've got anything. It is going to be a challenge, which is another reason I ran for a third term. Because my biggest concern, as I told a reporter from France here a few weeks ago, my biggest concern is that we've been relying on ourselves now better and better, but our younger generation, I just know, they do not understand how thin the ice is where we have built this sovereignty and where we've taken this inheritance of culture and language and are nurturing it. You can't take it for granted. And I know the future generations I see now, some of them are just doing incredible work, but the majority, we're just not convincing them they need to take this over.
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh, we have such talent, but what are we going to do when my generation steps back, which we are right now, and get ready to hand it over? I don't want to see everything we built for hundreds of years set aside.
How could it be set aside?
Well, you lose your language, you lose your culture. There is that power that has been handed down for thousands of years. And if you lose it, we almost lost it. We almost lost it. We got to a point where there was less than a handful of fluent speakers 10 years ago.
You almost lost it because the population was dwindling.
Because the internet, because the books, because of the education systems, because of television, the speed at which the languages of the indigenous people has been degraded is incredible. And you can go from tribe to tribe, nation to nation, and it is the speed at which it happened. When I was in high school and I came up here to talk to the superintendent with my grandma, all these Osages up here were talking Osage. In here, and that's during my lifetime.
So you spoke Osage then too?
No, but I understood it. But I mean, because I've been bawled out in Osage by more than one elder. I understood Osage. But and you go this, go do that, or they say, "Oh, I kiche." Where are you going? And I said, "Pahuska, Donk Shibari." So I'm going to town. I'm going to Pahuska town. I mean, you just kind of, I don't know if that's not fluent. That's just day-to-day stuff.
The federal government today have their thumb on the Osage?
A good example is new federal regulations are being implemented, and we have all spoken in unison with the small producers here. The production has been reduced for the oil and gas to where most of the production, I can't give you an exact percentage, because even though I've heard the number, but over half the production per well is 1 to 3 barrels per day.
Why is that?
Because this is a depleting oil field. So that's the situation. So when you put regulations over this, as they're proposing to do, which are designed for larger production in more sensitive environmental conditions, such as Alaska or the Gulf Coast. Those are very sensitive environments. The regulations that we've read have quadrupled in size as they proposed them, and it will drive all the smaller producers out of business, which we believe initially it'll take a third of our production, which is now about 10, 11,000 barrels per day for the whole underground reservation, which is a fraction of what it was during the 20s. But that production, when that goes down, the well plugging requirements will kick in. That whole system of how we pull up oil and gas will go to the wayside. And what's left is a couple of companies that in the North Burbank are using CO2 injection to basically produce 40% of our oil and gas now. So anyway, we're down now to 10, 11, 12,000 barrels. With these new regulations, we expect that to a third immediately and about half to be gone. And even though 5,100 have a headright interest, most of those are elderly people who rely on that remaining income to supplement their Social Security and others. It's really important to them. I mean, the big money's gone, but we do have some production that people rely on, money. But at the same time, what's consistent? Well, what's consistent is the mahida, the big knife, the long knife, has been here since we left Missouri, and they still are here.
I found it interesting about Chief Fred Lookout. Interesting person. You could probably tell the story. He was 10 years old when he joined his family and tribe on a 150-mile walk to the new Osage Mission.
I that's a family story I was told. He walked with certain young boys that about his age. One of them later became assistant chief to him, Franklin Shaw. We've heard about that. Also heard from those same sources of my great uncles and aunts and my grandparents. That last buffalo hunt we had right before we came here was not very successful, but that was a big event back in the day, I was told.
So Principal Chief Lookout, he was Principal Chief 1913 to 1914, reelected 1916 to 1918, and then from 1924 to 1949. So the thing that got my attention here was looking out for the oil leases of the Osage. And then, since I have read the book Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann, and that begins in 1921 and on to the 20s and all that. So would your great-grandfather been around for what became known as the Reign of Terror?
Oh, not only my great-grandfather, but my grandparents and uncles and aunts.
Your grandparents, what are their names again?
Well, Eugene, he's Standing Bear. He's a Lakota. And my grandmother, Mary Lookout, Standing Bear.
Let's follow up on Killers of the Flower's Moon, as long as we have introduced it. It's a
great book.
Yes.
And you know why it's a great book? Because David Grann did his interviews with such respect for the families that were directly affected. And he took his time in getting to know the community. And then his research in the federal records and the records here was just spot on, very reliable.
It's the story of, I suppose, one of the biggest serial murder cases in American history, and was forgotten. And of course, the setting was here in the Osage Indian Nation in the 20s. And then, of course, we bring in J. Edgar Hoover's FBI and all that. We can tell the whole story, but we want people to read the book and eventually see the film, which comes out in October.
John, if there's one thing I want to make clear is, although those events were 100 years ago, and I wasn't there, and I don't know anybody else that was there, there are a lot of family stories, yes, and that book is about the Gray Horse community, which is near here, about 25 miles, but there were other bad deeds done.
How old were you when you were aware of this reign of terror that we talked about?
Well, when I was in high school, the way I got to drive was to drive Grandma around to go visit her friends. And so I had my science fiction books. I like science fiction. And so I would go in with Grandma to go visit her schoolmates, who were all full-blood ladies, and spoke Osage to each other all in the morning, or we ate lunch with them, or in the afternoons. Why I didn't record any of this is I never thought the language would disappear so fast. So during this time, they would talk about so-and-so family and so-and-so family, and oh, you know, they're used to, I could mention names, but I don't want to, but there was so much of that families, but they're all gone. And they say, well, you know, what happened to his father? And so, I heard them talking about it.
Okay.
But that's it wasn't me. I wasn't there.
Nor did you put together that all these murders were taking place.
Oh, we knew the murders taking place.
You knew that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the 1921 massacre. There were many generations who never heard about it.
Well, I didn't hear about it, even though I knew there was some troubles back then. But gosh, I was raised in Tulsa, 60 miles from here, and I didn't hear about it. But if you're living there and your families were there, I'm sure you knew all about it. You know where I learned about the Tulsa massacre there in 1921? Was in law school, my first year at Tulsa.
At the University of Tulsa.
Uh-huh. And I can't remember which professor it was, but we were taught there about, what happened to the property records in Tulsa County, and which was relevant to the class and that subject. And we were told that part of that whole tragedy were people, lawyers and what they call landmen, going into the records and changing all the land records to the point where people that were doing the changing had to be pulled away from the books because they were getting paid, property by property, as they changed legal title at the Tulsa County records. Now, we were taught that my first year in law school.
What year was that?
It was 1976.
About this reign of terror when they were killing your Osage people, assassinating them.
And a cold-blooded murder, instead of insulin, putting poison into people. So as David Grant said, it was who was not complicit. Because you had the funeral directors, you had the doctors, you had the lawyers, you had the judges, state judges, you had law enforcement, you had the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Who was not complicit? And David researched this, and he summed up his research in that book. Everybody was part of this madness. And if you weren't doing it, someone else was going to do it, and you were losing out.
Well, one of the masterminds was William Hale, Bill Hale.
Yep.
He was really a middleman of all of this.
Well, let's see. And I'll take you in the next room here, and I've got that panoramic photo that David Grant references in his book that's in the museum. And I asked some of the older folks, did you know him? And they said, oh yeah, he was a nice guy. And I talked to different elders back there, and they said, yeah, well, we sat there and talked after he got out of prison. We sat there along that fence line, that barbed wire fence line. He pulled his vehicle up. We talked, and he would say, you guys are having a Native American church meeting? He would slaughter a cow for that Osage family. And he was, among some of the Osage, he was considered a good guy, which just shocked me.
And tell us what he did.
What he did was, as the book reports, was a mastermind of one of, if not the largest conspiracy to deprive an Osage family, extended family, of their headright and their money by intermarrying and using this system here of probate with the courts and the laws of Oklahoma and federal laws to make it legal, except for the murder part, to make the descendants pass and the headright money to keep flowing to one survivor. And in that book, in the movie, it's the surviving sister who was married to Bill Hale's nephew, Ernest Burkhart, which is another strange situation. According to my view, I can't say everybody agrees with this, but he got out of prison and he was still over there. And my senior advisor, John Williams, who was an advisor on the movie, he told me, he goes, oh, I knew Ernest Burkhart. He goes, we all knew him over there when we were younger. And so the relationships are complicated. That's best explained by people from the Gray Horse community.
Right. But Bill Hale directed people to be assassinated. He set people up to be killed.
That's what I have read, and that's what I've heard. I wasn't there.
Well, if we believe David Grand like you do and the research he did, then that's a true story.
Well, remember, I spent 35 years in courtrooms. Trying to find the truth in any situation is what we do. You go look at a car accident and talk to the witnesses, 5 witnesses, you're going to get 5 a little bit different views.
Martin Scorsese came here and visited with you, didn't he?
When we first heard that David had sold the rights to, I believe, the company's Imperative, we watched it, what was going on, and Imperative started reaching out to some of our people just to see, what was going on here. It was very quiet. As they became more and more committed to making a movie, the state film office and the Osage here entered into preliminary discussions. How can we get this movie filmed in Oklahoma? It was up in the air about where this movie was going to be filmed. And the film office, whatever they did, became separate from whatever we were doing. And we had a couple of the Imperative folks come here. We gave them a tour, set up interviews with some of the family members of the Gray Horse community, had a dinner for them, traditional Osage dinner. And then the movie control moved from one company to the other, and I can't pretend to tell you how all that worked. But then it went to Apple, and then very quickly after that happened, we heard Martin Scorsese was going to be the director or even part of the production. And very quickly, we started hearing more information. So I designated an Osage who knows that world. He goes to Sundance and all. He lives in Boca Raton, Florida. He knows that world. Chad Renfro. And I said, okay, you're appointed ambassador to work with Apple and Scorsese. I don't even know where to start. So we started putting everything together. We went back down and started some conversations with the Oklahoma Film Office. And Scorsese came in here quickly with like 48-hour notice, less than that, and came into the room right across the way here. And we talked for about 2.5 hours, told him about our concerns, that it was not going to be filmed here. Other states had these credits, economic tax credits and bonuses or whatever, however they were doing it. He said, we're gonna film here. I'm going to do that here. And I said, so the next part of it was, well, we're concerned about how you're going to portray the Osage because we just don't want to be a bunch of dead bodies. Imperative, the last 2 people we talked to from there several years ago now, had said finally at the end, we're going to tell this story through the eyes of Molly Burkhart, the Osage sister, and we're going to make a movie the Osage will be proud of. Now then of course the movie control changed hands, were shared hands. And we were concerned until Scorsese says, I'm going to make a movie the Osage will be proud of. And so as we went on, and he committed to filming, I got to tell you this. I asked him, I was so amazed about this man. And he's a great storyteller, let me tell you, of course. He's easy to talk to. And I said, well, how are you approaching this? I mean, David's book has a lot of the FBI in it. And is this going to be a story about the FBI? Is it with the Osage as the victims? How's DiCaprio going to fit in there? That is one of these meetings we had is where he said, well, I'm going to hire or we're going to bring in, he didn't say hire, we're going to bring in Bob, he calls him Bob De Niro. That was the first, I said, can we repeat that? Because nobody knows that. He goes, yeah, sure. So he says, I said, wow, and who's he going to, is he going to play Hale? And he goes, yeah, he's already wearing the glasses and getting himself into this role. So I said, but how is it going to be? Can you sum it up? Because I talked to him enough that I know he can sum up things quickly. He said, this is going to be a story about trust and betrayal. It's a story about the trust the Osage people had with the society, Western society that came here, and the betrayal of that trust by this system that was set up. But it's also, at another level, a story about the trust Molly Burkhart had with Ernest and his family, and the betrayal of that trust. And if I was going to sum up how he described what he was creating, that's it. So you can see the FBI, it does have a role in the movie. But this really is a story about the Osage and trust and betrayal. And I was honored, along with a few other Osage, to see a preview in New York City in December of those portions of the movie where the Osage culture is strongly represented. And all of our efforts to work with the production teams, the directors, and cinematographers, and the script writers, all of that work we did to have our language department coach these actors is evident. There is just great detail put into how words are pronounced, and then proper respect for our ceremonies. We only saw a portion of this movie, so I can't tell you what it really looks like, but I can tell you those portions of the movie portraying the Osage people, those that sat and saw that would tell you it was very respectful, very accurate. You'll not see an American movie more like it than this.
You have reason to believe the entire film is going to be really something that you would approve of.
Absolutely. I have high hopes. Like I said, I haven't seen the rest of the movie, but I do know what the dedication, not only of Mr. Scorsese and his cinematographers and his producers, the glimpses I had of watching Lily Gladstone and the other actresses and or actors and Mr. De Niro and Mr. DiCaprio and others work, that it's just, they are so serious, so hardworking about it. So it's amazing to watch. I sat in a corner, in a room, like they kind of put me in a little place where I could not be seen, because I said, I got to see this part. So I got to watch some of these scenes being made, not very many. Wow. You're in another world when you're watching, and we were in it was a recreation of a barber shop and pool hall.
In here at Pocahontas?
Yeah, right downtown.
Right.
They turned the streets into dirt, and we provided the dirt from our farm, and, it was great. And then, but, you're sitting in there. Of course, I don't know if you've been around how they make these movies, but they have these shades that are as big as giant tents, but they're all, the lighting is so moved around, and so outside, and they have all these Osages and other folks, they're not Osages, taking their place in these old 1920s cars. Everything's stopped. And then inside this room, you've got everybody sitting around, and of course, and then you have in this scenes I saw De Niro and DiCaprio sitting down, and then Mr. Scorsese sits there, and then his other, I guess he's assistant director. I don't know what he's actually called, but he's also incredibly talented. And they go, roll sound. And I'm watching this like, wow. And everybody's in there, and goes, roll sound inside, is what he said. And then they start, and then he gives some other commands. And then so inside is one set of actions and movements, and then he rolls sound outside and some other commands. And just like some magic, everybody out there starts moving according to this prearranged steps and scripts and movements. And I'm telling you, you are there. You are 19, early 20s. You are absolutely there. And then the color, there's a, as you'll see, they went after a certain color. You ever seen Gangs of New York?
Yes.
Yeah, and because I went back and watched more of his movies,
Right.
and I noticed that he has a sort of like certain colors. I don't know how to say it, but it atones. And I saw it. I saw how they did it. I mean, wow, these guys are so professional.
Okay, so then you watched Leonardo DiCaprio, and did he call him Bobby? Bobby De Niro?
Oh, the first time he said
Right.
he was coming here.
Right. But you saw them work. Did they have to have many retakes?
I'm under a non-disclosure agreement, so I got to be careful. But I can tell you right now, I can tell what the heck. I'll just tell you. The scene that I liked best that I saw, the answer is no. They went in there, they did a few takes, they sat down, but the preparation to get to that point was unbelievable. The lighting inside, the lighting outside, the people's where they started, where they sat, and then when those two actors sat down to talk to each other, that second when those directors said to do this, do that, do this, do that, it's just like a universe just moved, and you were there.
Magic.
It was magic. It was magic. I saw it. Yeah.
Because there would have been
And heard it. Yeah.
there would have been scenes because Leonardo played the part of Ernest Burkhart and De Niro plays the part of Bill Hale. And so those two would have naturally interacted.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And tell us, Ernest Burkhart, real quick, who he was.
Well, this is just in real life. He was the husband of Molly, and Molly's mother died suspiciously. And then Molly's sisters, one by one, died, and their headrights passed to their surviving heirs. And so sister after sister, and this is it's one way how it was done. They would accumulate in the surviving heirs that would have more than one headright, and then people would marry into that family and then have the benefits. That's just historically what happened. How that's portrayed in the movie, you'll have to watch the movie. Or go read the book.
Yeah, I was just going to say that and read the book. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Did you meet Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro?
Yes.
And did you get any time to talk about the movie or
No.
just hi, hello, and that was that?
Well, I did on the screening, the part that we saw, Mr. DiCaprio, Leonardo DiCaprio, was also there, and we got to visit a little bit. All of us did. Our language director, Van Bighorse, and several Osages. But as far as just talking to Robert De Niro and De Niro here, we didn't talk about the movie at all. I mean, we were just nice to meet you. It was great. This is wonderful to meet you, and welcome to Pawhuska. They had trailers out here, and then got to go there and just visit a little bit.
Leonardo DiCaprio also stayed in Tulsa at a house.
Well, I don't know where they're spending the night, but I know during the day I met him here.
Yeah. Lily Gladstone plays the part of Molly Burkhart. And we can say that it was Molly's sister, Anna, who disappeared.
One of them.
Right. And that's kind of the genesis of how this thing gets started.
Well, that's the book.
Right.
And the movie, I don't know.
Right.
At least we didn't see the.
I can only tell you what I read in the book.
Yeah.
Right. And so then it was discovered that Anna's body was found, and And
Yeah,
she had been murdered.
Yes, there were several, and that's over there at the Gray Horse District. That's where this whole story is located. And there are three districts among the Osage: the Gray Horse, Pahuska, and Hominy.
I think we think of greed. It was greed,
Yes.
greed,
Yes.
greed, which could have easily played into maybe the name of it. Killers of the Flower Moon. Why did he choose that name?
That was a poem. Elise Passion, who is a world-renowned poet, wrote a poem, and it's toward the end of the book. It is quoted, and that talks about a month. 1 month is the flower moon. I think we're in right or coming into, and the killer of the flower moon is, I believe that's June. The Elise does an incredible poem, and by the way, she is the only child of Maria Tallchief of the Gray Horse District. And Maria, as you know, you're nodding your head, was the United States, America's first world-class prima ballerina. And she, the New York Ballet, among others. Her sister Marjorie was with the Ballet Russe in Paris. But anyway, Maria is buried over here at the cemetery in in Fairfax. And I was at her funeral. So Elise Passion is an amazing woman. I never personally met her mother, Maria, but I've seen her when I was younger. But she's famous among the Osage, the great ballerina.
This very story we're talking about has never gone away because descendants of these people, the Burkharts,
Oh, yeah.
Marvin's stepson, the Bill Hales, and all, they're all living around here.
Or they live in Tahlequah, or they live in different parts of Oklahoma. I've got to tell you, one thing that really struck me while this has been going on, I learned a lot myself, not being from the Gray Horse District. But one of the people that are direct descendants of this situation, and I can't remember if she said this at a meeting or if it was in David Grant's book. I can't remember, but I just thought of something that really impacted me, is that she said, when I look around at all the other Osages during the ceremonies we have, dances in the summer or large gatherings, she said, I can't help but feel upset and sad that my family is not large like many others, because my family should have been large like the others. And I thought, I never looked at it from that point of view.
Yeah.
But that's the suffering they do today.
The uncles and the cousins they would have had.
Yeah, aunts and they were all killed, murdered. And to this day, when we get our ceremonies, we take pride in our extended family systems. I never looked at it that way. I never heard of that before.
Yeah.
That's powerful stuff.
It is very powerful.
And half of our population doesn't even live in Oklahoma even. They've left.
Florida,
California and Texas primarily. But in the 1920s, a lot of people got out of here. And then during the Great Depression, during the 30s, when everything fell flat, a lot of the families said, well, Cousin Joe or Aunt Mary, they're living in San Diego or someplace no one's ever heard of called Oceanside, and at the time, or La Jolla at the time. So they all moved as a result, an economic opportunity. So many of our people moved away. But they are Osage, and they think, I need to get a benefit from this casino money. So we put a health card together. We put scholarship programs together. And that's where we, right off the top, burial assistance, So we do that. So we have a balancing that we have to do here because all of this that you see right here belongs to all 25,000 Osages. We are building a relatively small casino compared to the other tribes. It has 40-some, almost 50 rooms, and it's here on east side of town. Now, right now, our casino here in the tribal capital is a couple of double wide trailers, and it's been that way for many years because we didn't have the confidence in the stream of commerce coming through. But based on Reed Drummond's traffic on the Pioneer Woman down here, which has been a phenomena the last 5 years or so, and this movie, we felt confident enough to invest a substantial amount into that hotel and the casino. And it's one small area where we can try to welcome people here, but they're going to want to go to Gray Horse. And
why? Tell us.
That's why in the book and the movie, you're going to see that's where all this Gray Horse and Fairfax is taking place.
Yeah.
I tell you, we had a couple of years ago, more and more people from out of wherever visiting and going to the graveyards, and especially the one at Gray Horse Village, where Molly and the sisters and others are buried. And the community there made a good decision and said, we need new fencing and a gate, an automatic gate. And we did that from the nation to that community, and that community controls the gate. But it was becoming a tourist attraction, and the community said, this is a graveyard. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we're reacting now instead of planning short term. We have long term plans, but short term for the Gray Horse, Fairfax, if you travel over there, you'll see there's a lot we can do, like rebuilding that train station. That we can do that, but it should be coordinated with other activities that the community needs to do.
And how many miles are they from here?
It's about 25 miles,
Yeah.
30 miles. The communities are just a few miles apart.
But Pawhuska will be hit too, just as big.
It is now. And
Right.
what we want to do is assist the town of Gray Horse and well, it's not a town, it's a village, ceremonial area as well. And there's some people live there. But we want to assist that community and the town, which is just a few miles away, which is portrayed in the movie. This is Fairfax. That's the town, but it's filmed right here in Pawhuska.
Yeah, but we should say some scenes were filmed in Tulsa.
Well, some scenes were filmed in Fairfax, not very many.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. But we got most of the movie filmed here, right downtown, and then just west of here, there's a house where some ceremonies take place, and then right east near Bartlesville, there's an area they filmed. And then one day they just all magically left. It was just, and some of the Osages that were involved day to day were a little bit dazed. I was talking
I mean, these were walk-ons and
extras,
part of the film?
a lot of people, a lot of the Osages were hired as costume makers. So we had all that going on. So that's another aspect, not only our language, but our clothing is authentic. And you'll see a lot of our people's work there. Makeup, cinematography. There are some students. I know two young men in their 20s that graduated from, film school in different parts of the country. Part of that 12,500 that moved away. They're here. They came back and they got to work under world-class cinematographers and get behind the camera and just be there with the directors. I saw that happening. That's very happy moments for me to see all of our Osage people as extras, working behind the scenes, all that. So, but one day they were just gone, and and then my senior advisor was here, and he was down there every day. He just passed away a couple months ago, but.
Who is this? Your senior
advisor. John Williams.
Okay.
So we have so many people saying, "Oh yeah, Osage do it this way, Osage do it that way," and which is true. We're diverse people, and so I asked John Williams. I said, "You're a Vietnam veteran, Green Beret, combat medic, plus you're a former drum keeper. You're a senior advisor nowadays at the Gray Horse ceremonies. You're the guy." That needs to be sitting down there making sure things are going to be authentic. So Chad Renfro dealt with Apple on the business side. John Williams, he went down there and dealt with, we don't really do that way, or we do it this way. So he was down there every day. And when they just left after months of shooting, he was a little bit dazed. He has an office right next to mine here. He did. I asked Marianne Bauer, the producer, I said, these Osages, some of them are walking around here. There's some of them are just kind of like, what happened? Where'd that world go that you all set up, dirt streets and, the facades of those buildings? One of her assistants said, that is a pretty normal situation where all of a sudden it just is gone. It's normal for people to come out into this world a little bit. Where have I been for the last 7 or 8 months? These extras and people that are working behind the cameras were doing is they had this whole areas of town in these big tents. They would start work at 6 in the morning or earlier, and stand around and do things all day, waiting. Most of movie making is waiting. And I saw that for their moment to shine, be it in acting or movie or making, however it is, costume. And then they would work until 6:30, 7:30 at night. So I was talking to one of my nieces. I said, Stormy, what is that like? And she goes, Uncle Jeff, she goes, we all are living in that world. And we get up, and she lives in Ponca City, 45 minutes away from here. And she's got kids and stuff. So she and her husband figure things out. Then she gets ready, drives over here, was there all day, all night. This is very typical. And sometimes they were filming just special at 2, 3 in the morning. And so she says, we're there, we're all together. She had a larger role than some others, so she was more engaged with some of the top stars. And we live in that world day in, day out for months after months after months. And we're living back in those times. And and she speaks very good Osage.
This is your niece now you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Storm Brave. Anyway, that's her name. So she, and it's typical, I found out, that they're so, the Osages particularly were so dedicated, and we had such great direction on what to do by world-class people. Some of them are still in the film business and have their Screen Actors Guild cards. Yeah, some got SAG cards. And there was Indians, Native Americans everywhere up here. It was great. That world they were in, and then one day, like it's like that whole world, like in 2 days, it was gone, and it was
back to real life.
Well, here we were,
Yeah.
Here I am up here, And John comes up, and he was like, "Gosh, here comes Marianne and her assistants." And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "That that happens. That's just part of that."
Right.
But if you ever get a chance to be part of world-class movie making, because other movies have been made here with great actors and great actresses. There was kind of that kind of a town, and I mean, and I'm not going to mention any names because I mean they're world-class actors and actresses. But you get something like a Martin Scorsese, which I've learned, and you put him and his people together, it is a very different experience than the other movies that have been made here. It is a whole nother time, a whole nother era, a whole nother world. What geniuses. And he gets the geniuses together,
Right.
and they all collaborate. And then they all go to the next project. They're all just gone.
When it was wrapping up or finished, did you have final words with Scorsese or near the end and how he felt good or you?
Oh, no. I do know that Chad Renfro and Johnny Williams, told me after we thought they'd wrapped up filming, which they did for the most part, that they wanted to come back and do just a dance up here where we work. Of those extras and others, just put on your Osage clothes and have a dance, just to show. I said, well, what for? And they said, well, to show the Osage are still here and that we're still, doing what we do. Because, our culture and language is really about everything. I mean, that's what we all live in a modern world and have for, a couple hundred years. But what's kept us separate, distinct, and unified is this language, which we almost lost, our culture, which is strong, our songs, which is strong, our foods, our traditional foods, which is strong. We have so many things, the way we view the world religiously, and the diversity we have. That is the magic of the Osage. I think that money we had, I think we were able to keep things a little bit longer than other tribes.
When the film was being made, pretty good economic impact on the community.
Well, but if we were better prepared, it would have been a lot more. Bartlesville and Ponca City, especially Bartlesville, and good for them. But hotel rooms, apartments, all these people that worked, and it was a boom here for the small town of Pawhuska.
Bartlesville is how far from here?
About 25 miles.
See, so that was an easy drive.
Yeah, right? Yeah, and so they came here twice, pre-COVID, and then they had all these places rented out over there, and then COVID hit, and they stopped filming. They were just starting, and they stopped everything, and all of that was changed, where people stayed and everything. So then they came back post-COVID, and all started up again. So had two shots at it.
You talked about in the 20s when this was going on, there were families who just got out of here because
That's right.
They were afraid they were going to be murdered.
And I know quite a few of those families.
Right.
They still vote, and as a politician, you got to travel out there. And
to where they are.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they could be living in California and voting on, right.
And they do.
And so you've had to campaign out in California.
We all do, more than once.
Right. But what this community would have been like had this reign of terror not happened, the families that would have been here, we kind of alluded to the aunts and uncles and so forth that wouldn't be here.
There are other things. Before you get back to what you're going to say, do you know that I was told by these old folks that Mr. Marlin wanted to put his refinery here, and Mr. Phillips wanted to put a refinery here, but the real estate agents and others that controlled the land jacked the prices so much that both those gentlemen were just mad and said, okay, we'll just show you. Mr. Marlin built his refinery in Ponca City, and Mr. Phillips put his world headquarters over there in Bartlesville. That's just another side note.
That is right.
Can you imagine what this town would be like?
Right.
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with
And that was the Osage. That was just greed.
It just, right. But then I bring back the 1921 race massacre, and I've talked in interviews with people who said all the families who left, the wealthy blacks who left and went to Chicago and other areas, that would more than likely have stayed in Tulsa and been very productive citizens living in Tulsa, and they lost all those families and their descendants. So there's a correlation here from Reign of Terror and race massacre.
There was also, I was told by people that were there, that community members and victims of that massacre escaped up Bird Creek, went all the way from North Tulsa and all the way up to right here where Bird Creek is, and sought refuge. And many of them moved on to other places, but many of the families are still here that were scattered. That's part of the massacre story I haven't heard anybody talk about, but I heard it from the old folks that said, oh yeah, we helped them out. They came up here. They were all running for their lives, and their whole families. It was terrible.
How wealthy in the 1920s the Osages were. And I think the whites were jealous because these people were buying not only one new car, 2 cars, 3 cars. They were living in the lap of luxury because they were living on an income far greater than the rest of the
my grandmother, I've mentioned a couple times, and my grandpa, they had a house east of Pawhuska, red brick house, and it had a mahogany phone booth in it. And then in the basement, it was the heat, central heat, was also able to convert to central air. And they had a servant, they called him in those days. He wasn't black, but they had a servant. And he would take blocks of ice during the summer and put it in this device where they would have central air. And she had several cars, like all the other Osages. She had a blue Duesenberg, which is pretty cool.
Okay, is this your
This is my grandma. Yeah, she had a blue Duesenberg. I remember 1922. She was like 24.
And she had the headrights.
She had headrights.
And how much money was she getting?
Well, at the time, let's see, what's the top year? The equivalent of every man, woman, and child at the time that had a headright. That means you had to receive it at 1906 or 1907. There was a supplemental roll. $400,000 in today's dollars, and she had a couple of those. So
that's nearly $1 million.
Tax-free. And so, she had, I said, well, so what other cars do you have? She goes, well, my favorite car was my Buick Roadster. And then my grandpa, Gene, he told me, he goes, yeah, me and your uncles, we had biplanes. And we get up there, over there in that field over there, and we just keep our planes there. Your one, I'm not going to mention any names, but he goes, your one uncle didn't drink, but he sure liked to fly. He goes, but my grandpa Gene goes, I just always talk about a whiskey with me, and I'd get into that plane, and we go up and fly up into Kansas, 30 miles north of here, and have dogfights. This during the 1920s. These guys were in their 20s. That's the world they were living in, according to that's what I was told.
But then your families, were they nervous?
Well, yeah.
That they could be attacked, assassinated?
I asked that question, actually, about, I'd heard about this stuff. I said, did we ever, anybody, we lose anybody? I said, no, my dad and I were going down the road, and somebody took a shot through the front window, but we don't know if it was a reckless hunting or somebody, because no one chased him or anything, but it made him nervous enough. She tells me he hired some bodyguards basically out of Chicago, brought them down. He was chief at the time. He was off and on chief during those decades. And
again, who?
Fred Lookout,
Your
great-grandfather.
right.
Yeah, he hired some guys out of Chicago. She said, yeah, one of them said, it was at the house, east of town, said, Chief, once these guys around here find out me and my boys are hired by you to protect your family, you're going to have no trouble. And so basically, my great-grandfather hired some very tough outlaws of those gangsters, basically. We never had any problems.
No. All this money, you talked $400,000, then you got another allotment of $400,000. In today's money, that's...
Well, that's what they tell us. The adjusted is $400,000.
Right. Did any of that money, was it all spent? Did it get carried down to next generation?
Well, it did not. For the most part, some did, some didn't. But again, these people did not have financial literacy training. People would, this is documented, buy a new car, top of the line, Pierce Arrow or something, and drive it, and it ran out of gas. They thought it was just dead horse, and they would go buy another vehicle. And someone else would just take that vehicle and go away with it. I mean, that was documented. It wasn't anything that my family or others, any other Osage I know, knew about. But I can tell you, when you go to the Gray Horse Cemetery or some of these other cemeteries, Hominy, Pawhuska, look how many young people whose grave markers show deceased, 1920, 1921, 1919, 1923, 1925. Look at the ages of these people. And again, like that, I can't mention her name, I almost mentioned her name, I don't want to. Like she said, my family should have been large like yours. Mm-hmm. That is what you'll see in these graveyards.
Yeah. I don't know, in the book, was it like they documented about 28 people were murdered, but there were many more.
Yeah. Oh,
many.
We've amongst ourselves here, some of the leadership over the years, we've, and talking to some who descended from those folks over there, best estimate we can make is 5% of our tribe was assassinated.
So how many would that be?
About 150.
Yeah,
murdered, which, doesn't sound like a lot, but if that's your crew and you're targeted and 5% are being knocked off and the system is helping it. Some say, and a former tribal leader, chief, has told me me and my people that come up with that number, I've never really promoted that number, are grossly underestimating the amount. But, his family's from Gray Horse, so I think more of it was there, Hominy. But here in Pawhuska, it happened. There's a book called Deaths of Sybil Bolton about this guy's grandma. She lived right up the street here. She's one of those victims. It happened, but I think most of it was in the Gray Horse district. So when you take those folks and then take out the numbers, it's probably more impactful. I heard that they didn't let the lights off. They put lights, made sure there was lights on at nights. I know a man in Hominy, come to think of it, Sonny Abbott, said his grandfather built that fence. There was a 12-foot fence around his place. And that was the 1920s with barbed wire on it. Yeah, that's in Hominy, just west of Hominy.
Real quick, if you could, McGirt versus Oklahoma.
The McGirt case is based on criminal law and the way those statutes I mentioned in the late 1890s and early 1900s that me and my crew decided, let's leave that alone for a future day. That's what we were concerned about is it leads from criminal law to eventually taxation and regulation. So let's just go ahead and start with regulation and taxation and stay away from criminal. So we reversed it in 1984, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87. But in McGirt, there was actually some predecessor cases to that. But the Supreme Court of the United States, we all know, said, well, if you look at these criminal statutes and the treaties, the reservations were never disestablished for those purposes, not ownership. They didn't talk about ownership, but for criminal jurisdiction. I talked to some tribal or from the guys from another tribe yesterday, and it was last night, yeah. And they're the light horse police from Muskogee Creek. They were here to help our police set up a youth explorer program. We were talking about that, about the impact it's had on the Muskogee Creek and other tribes over there, 5 civilized tribes and the Quapaw, on the cost of the administration of justice. Police, public defenders, prosecutors, jail. For those tribes, it's quite a expense. Most of them did not have that on their calendars to deal with. We have observed that at Osage, and we have taken we wanted to go down that road as well, but we're taking it in incremental steps by filing certain documents in other criminal cases that are not involved in the Osage Nation as friend of the court. In 2010, this is 13 years later, the nation lost a case, which I was not involved in the federal courts that said the Osage Reservation was disestablished. That was a tax case called the IRBY case. So we're trying to show the courts here, our lawyers, that IRBY should not control, the broad language of IRBY should not control all aspects of the questions of tribal jurisdiction, state jurisdiction, federal jurisdiction. Because there's so many lawyers, I'll just say it, I'm on the record, that's all right. There's so many lawyers involved in this stuff. It's like a cottage industry. And I have practiced law going on 10 years. But if I was, I'd have to jump in on this because, my gosh, it's billable hours, right? And it's, but here where I am, what I do, I'm thinking I got to keep these legal costs down because I got preschool. I got 200 and some kids in preschools. I got elderly housing that we're trying to build. I got food programs for the elderly. I got over 1,000 Osages in scholarship programs where we pay up to $12,000 a year in their tuition and books. I've got almost 14,000 Osages on a health card. I've got 1,000 elders on a Medicare supplement we pay for. This is all money that goes to good purposes. And I've been on that lawyer side, and I know how to fill out a billing statement and a timesheet. And I am suspicious, yes, of all lawyers who do work. If I see 3 lawyers billing us for a conference, they better have a darn good reason. They better be in front of a federal judge or a state judge or something if they're going to be 3 of them on the same damn case. But if they're sitting around reading a book about Indians, and I've actually seen bills that do that, where lawyers would bill the client, another tribe, not Osage, when I was practicing law, they would bill the client for reading books about Indians. I've seen some attorneys, big firms in Oklahoma and out of Colorado, send some of these tribes for 1 month's work, $300,000 bill. Do you know what we could do right now? If someone said, Chief, here's $300,000 cash. We decide not to, didn't have to spend it on the lawyers. I got a health clinic down here. Every time that interest rate, we're trying to finance it, goes up, it's costing us a fortune. So that's why there's a blank space there. I got to figure out a way to build that clinic within the resources we have. But I tell you, lawyers and accountants and CPAs, God bless them. I've worked with them. I love the professions, but there's a serious greed problem going on in this country. And the Osage, maybe, as Renard Strickland pointed out, he goes, you need to look at Felix Cohen in the 20s and 30s in Washington, D.C. He said, remember, the Native Americans are the miner's canary. He goes, Felix Cohen said that.
Wow.
Well, that's what I get. I have a front row seat to this. I'm watching what happened to the Osage with greed. And I'll tell you, in business in this country, and the lawyers and all the other professionals and the people, it's not about issues. It's too much. It's not about productivity. It's about greed.
Yeah.
That's my observation. It's not universal, but it's way, 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 way down that road.
And we talked about greed in Killers of the Flower Moon, and now we're talking about greed here today in 2023.
Just like the miner's canary.
Exactly.
We set the pace, and what happened to us can happen to anybody.
So what do you say to the young Osage about their heritage, culture, and advice for them?
Well, fortunately, I don't have to say anything because here's a teaching we have. You can't really talk about our teachings. I've got my own family say, "Oh, you ought to write all this down or record it." Our old people say these ways will teach you, and what they meant is the only way you're going to learn it is to participate in it, and that is the truth. So my advice is just learn these ways by participating. So in the summer out here, you're going to see, when I was 21, 22, we had, in that dance out here we do in the summer, we had 50 on a Saturday night, maybe on a Friday afternoon, 10, 15 dancing. Now on a Friday night or Saturday night, you'll have 300 men and 300 women and younger generations. And they all know what to do. They all know when not to dance, when not to dance. They know when to dance. They know which songs or what parts. And we didn't have a class. The families brought them in, told them, don't do this, don't do that. And my gosh, and they went out there and they learned from each other. So these ways will teach you. That's what I want to tell our young people. Take part in your tribal ways, and those ways will teach you.
Very good. Well, I thank you.
Well, thank you.
This was very, very interesting. Can you say anything in Osage to me here as we part?
Iagashina. That means, that's all I have to say. Kakona. That's it.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
As we shake hands.
Osage Chief Geoffrey Standing Bear and a delegation from the Osage Nation attended the world premiere of the film Killers of the Flower Moon at the Cannes Film Festival, May 20th, 2023. Voices of Oklahoma interviewed Chief Standing Bear when he returned. He talked about viewing the film while sitting next to one of the film's stars, Robert De Niro, the reaction from the audience, the reference to the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, and the menu for the festival dinner. Listen now on the Oral History website, voicesofoklahoma.com.
Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, John. How are you today?
I am fine. I am calling you from our offices here, Voices of Oklahoma, and I'm talking to you in your office there in Pawhuska by phone. Your experience with the Killers of the Flower Moon, the Cannes Festival. Who was invited to the festival? I know your wife Julie was with you. Was there a bigger contingent of Osage?
Yes. Apple asked Scorsese, and he gave a list. On that list was Yancey Redcorn, and he was able to bring one guest, which is his sister, Maura. And Yancey plays Chief Bonacastle and does a good job in the film. Scorsese, he asked for another Redcorn, a cousin of Yancey, plays a medicine man to be there, and he brought his son. And then there was our newspaper editor, Shannon Shaw. But I think, I'm not sure if she was with Apple or the press group at Cannes. And then there was a few others. Of course, Chad Renfro is our ambassador, and we could not have pulled this off without him. And Chad brought a guest. So it wasn't a large group, but there was a group. That's correct.
You walked the red carpet, and that seemed to be a
I
big
knew
thing.
you were going to ask about. I knew you were going to ask that.
What is that all about?
Okay, well, here's what happened. So here's the hotel. Okay, this is like a 5-star hotel. Thank you, Apple. So the Apple handler for each group of us has Apple people who, like Secret Service agents, they have earbuds talking to each other. And you have to be at a certain place to catch this limo because there are like thousands of people outside. They're looking to get selfies or photos of their favorite stars, etc. Well, most of the people at Cannes are not the stars, but everyone there is industry connected or press, one way or another, or the movie. And so we're being shuttled in these long line of limos, and our limo pops up at a certain moment, and then get into the limo, and it was just like in the movies. You had to push yourself through the crowd because all the people are taking photographs thinking we must be somebody, or why are we coming out of the hotel getting in the limo? We get into the limo and we go down in line, all the in different limos to the theater, which is a couple blocks away. And there's the red carpet. And we all get out and everyone's standing around, not quite sure what's going to happen next, but we are confident the Apple team will guide us through this. And I am putting my blanket put on to symbolize our what we do, our people. I look up, and my wife Julie is with Chad Renfro, and they're being told to walk down the red carpet. Julie dressed in her Osage clothes, and so there they go. And Chad is such an expert at this. He goes down there, he stops, turns 100 cameras taking their photo. Then he walks down a little more, and they both turn to the left, and there are more photos. And then they just do this and go up the formidable staircase that goes up. And then they have somebody else to take off, and I'm staying there, and I'm just like, well, I say, Yancey, I get a little unsteady or anything. I want to reach out to one of you big guys and like hold your shoulder or something because that looks pretty imposing. Next thing I know, someone said, Chief, okay, just go. I went, go, huh? And so I started walking, and I thought, well, should I stop and turn a right, let everyone take a photo? And I said, well, they're not here to see me; they're here to see everybody else. So I just thought, look, I should just keep it simple. I should not fall down. I should just keep my focus on the stairway that's up here, and just walk down the red carpet and get up that stairway. And I really thought I was something really great to accomplish all that until I saw Thelma Schoonover. She's the movie editor, and she's won several Academy Awards for editing. And Thelma's in her 80s, and she just comes walking down that red carpet like she does this every week. And she's just happy as can be. And then she just pops her way up those steps. Thelma is just an incredible person, which is the great thrill is getting to know people like her and Marty. And I got to sit next to Robert De Niro for the movie. That was fun. And all the stars, and they're people. And as soon as you get to know them as people, they have their personalities, and some of them are very reserved, and some are very outgoing.
Yeah,
and it's just their personalities.
Then you had dinners. You sat next to Robert De Niro, and he spoke Osage to you, did he? Was he pretty good?
Oh my gosh! Well, during the movie, the Osage language is spoken throughout, and De Niro is one of the best. And he had some of our language teachers, of course, work with him, and they told me what a serious student he was, day in, day out. So we're watching the movie, and I was sitting right next to him, and there was this one scene. He goes in and just does talks in all this Osage, and it was so well said. It was just impressive, and I nudged him and gave him the thumbs up. That was nice. Really impressed. But they all did a really good job.
Was it at times hard to watch?
No. Well, I've seen it before, okay? And we've heard the story, although we don't really make it part of our conversation, all our lives. It's something we just don't dwell on. But I can tell you, none of my direct descendants were murdered, but I couldn't help but think about those Osages who I know very well, and I see like sometimes every day. Because we're all here during our ceremonies right now during June. How would it feel to see my grandfather or grandmother on the big screen being shot like that? I just imagine I would be hurt, shocked, rage. I find when I first saw it in New York, it was just depressing, that part. And what was shocking, of course, this is by design, I think, is the how in the movie it reflects actual events. Everyone just took it. Everyone, the non-Osage, the undertakers, the people who had something to gain financially from it, the guardians, how they considered it normal almost to kill an Osage, and then through the legal process or the illegal process, both working in tandem to take the wealth of that Osage and to put it in their own hands or in the hands of someone they control. That made me angry, of course, but we've known this forever. But I don't have any direct ancestors that I can imagine for those that do. It'd be very upsetting.
Right. The cast members, Leonardo DiCaprio, Lily Gladstone, and others were there. So when they viewed this, was this the first time they had seen it in its full final production?
Well, when we saw it in New York, Leonardo DiCaprio sat with us in a screening room, so I know he's seen it. But as far as the other actors, I did not ask. I was told, though, as we were heading to the after party, that Jesse Plemons, who does a great job as Tom White, the head of the FBI team, he had not seen it. And he cried for 10 minutes after it was over.
Wow.
That's what I was told by people I was waiting in line to get back in the limo. And no one said anything else about anybody else.
Yeah.
So that's what I know.
As I recall, you said your niece is in the film. Is that true?
Well, a lot of our nieces and nephews are in the film. And I have more than one niece and relative. Some of my wife's relatives are in there, some of our friends. I like to tell people, although you see Osages all through this as extras and other tribes, that there are a lot of Osages behind the camera, working with world-class costume makers, Academy Award-winning costume makers, Academy Award-winning cinematographers, having our people behind the scenes, people building sets, people learning how to, for lighting and building the sets for lighting. We have a lot of our people who are behind the camera.
The whole story takes place in Fairfax, and since I talked to you last time, I was in Fairfax actually a week ago, and I talked to Joe and Carol Connor, publishers of the Fairfax Chief newspaper.
Yes.
And let me just tell you the impactful moment that I had. I stood in front of the Tall Chief Theater, and of course, Joe and Carol have that memorial in there, with storyboards talking about it. And Carol took me out on the main street, and she says, points across the street to where Bill Hale worked in a bank, then pointed to the next corner building made of stone upstairs where the Dr. Schoen brothers worked, and
Yes.
then the pool hall upstairs next to Bill Hale's place of the work, the Cowboys, and then what is now an empty lot where the mortuary was Mathis Mortuary. And she said all he needed to do, Bill Hale, was to walk out of his place of business, walk over to the Schoen brothers and say, we're going to poison so-and-so, go up the pool hall steps and go find a cowboy if you wanted them to kill somebody, maybe give them $500, and then walk across to the mortuary and say, now to mutilate this body or whatever so that forensics won't know what happened to that body. She said he could do that within 5 minutes, and it just got me in my gut. It's the only way to say it.
Well, and don't forget how the court system at the time, the state court system, and the Federal Bureau of Indian Affairs had to approve the transfer of those properties, those oil and gas royalties, headright interests, and land to the people selected by the Hale and people like Hale. And so, as David Grand points out in his incredible, excellent book, it was a matter of who was not complicit, and the role of the federal government and the state cannot be ignored in this. And Scorsese did not spend a lot of time on that. But I'm sitting right now in the building that was built in 1922 for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And in this very building, a lot of these bad deeds were carried out to assist those who murdered my people. This very building.
Yeah. And of course, I was with you in that building. So the film is 3.5 hours long. For some, and we've all been talking about this, of course, and by the way, I've got to tell you, I can't believe all the people who have read the book. It'll come up in my conversation, or I'll ask people, have you read the book? Lots of people have read this book, and I'm telling them to read the second time because I am right now, and you sure now have the full story in your head. But the film is 3.5 hours long, and so some people are wondering, wow, is that too long? How did you feel about that?
It didn't seem like that long at all. Interestingly, he Scorsese, and Thelma Schoonover, the editor, has wound other bits of that history into this film that are not so much in the book. Primarily, the Tulsa Race Massacre is discussed in the film, showing some of the news reports. That isn't something that the book does not emphasize, but I thought it was a nice touch.
Yes.
He downplays the investigation part a bit just to save time, because if he did increase the time for Jesse Plemons and other really good, really great actors that were on the FBI story here, we had had 2 films. Easily another hour, maybe. And at the end, he uses a technique to sum up what happened after the arrest of Ernest Burkhart and Hale. He uses a recreation of a radio show to sum up the results of that, and then something about Molly Burkhart at the end. So you can see how this could have easily been another hour or more, and that means 2 films. The movie is not as fast moving. It's more involved in the relationship between Ernest, the nephew of Hale, married to Molly, the full-blood Osage. So it's a more introspective film to me. Although there is violence, violence is not the theme of this. The theme is the relationship between Ernest and Molly. And also, as Scorsese previewed for us, his approach is to show the relationship between the outside world and the Osage and how that relationship develops into one of trust and betrayal of the trust. Same description at a different level with Molly, with her trust of her husband, Ernest, Leonardo DiCaprio, and the horrible betrayal of that trust. I mean, they have children. Were they going to be next? Her? Was she going to be next?
Yeah.
Deprive the children of their mother? And that is a deeper emotional movie, I believe, than his previous movie.
They talked about this 9-minute standing ovation. What was that feeling like, and had to bring an emotion to you?
Well, it could have been longer. The head of the festival came up to Scorsese and handed him he started talking into the microphone, and then handed Scorsese the microphone. That's when the crowd stopped. When the film ended, they were in the credits. There was the ovation. But the way he had chosen to end the film, the last scene, were Osages dancing in our traditional dress and with a traditional song. So as they went into the credits, the music was continuing. Some of our current singers had composed. Some of the crowd started clapping in beat with the music.
Mm-hmm.
The it's the traditional style, but new song, traditional style, which was really great. But that's after 9 minutes, ahead of the Cannes Film Festival, handed Scorsese the mic, and he started talking, and that's when they stopped. But it would have continued, I know that.
And rave reviews. Rolling Stone said Scorsese takes on David Grann's bestseller about a murder epidemic among the Osage, turns it into a masterpiece. Vanity Fair review said, as Killers of the Flower Moon seeps in, it shocks, resounds, and haunts. That great choice of words. And so the reviews go on and on about this.
It'll make you think. That's when I ask people, what do you think? Osages and non-Osages. After, what you think of that? They just say, it can't get it off my mind. It's not, well, I would say shocking, unless you could never imagine that people are capable of such things. I practiced law for almost 35 years before I became chief some years ago. People asked me when I stepped back from that practice, what did I learn in 3.5 decades? And I tell them, I learned that people are capable of doing anything. And that shows up in this movie. So I don't consider it shocking. I just consider it just very disappointing, very, you have to keep your head together and say, this should never happen again. Or people will do this. And I know that, I hate to put this on the record, but I'm doing it. And I'm not being cynical, because it took me about 2 years, though, in this job as principal chief, to really shake that out and put it in perspective, and to know that there are so many more good people than bad people. And there's so many more good things in life than bad things. But I know when you're in the courtroom, doing that kind of work, and if you're in that kind, be it law enforcement or legal, you see that people can do some terrible things to each other. But thank God there's good people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I interviewed Eva Unterman, a Holocaust survivor, and she survived Auschwitz, and she called what was going on there a killing machine, a killing business, and that could be applied to this story as well.
On a smaller scale, yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that horrible? And that's where this kind of activity and thinking and feelings lead, is to these kind of horrors, and it's happened all through human history, and it's happening now, and it will happen in the future.
Yeah.
So I think we're all under a duty to work together to stop this.
Yeah. And then there are Oscar talk and Oscar mentions, and you probably have heard that. And Lily Gladstone maybe get an Oscar nomination. What have you heard?
Well, she's been here during our June ceremonies. We dance during June over about half of June. We're actually preparing, getting clothes on, dancing, or getting our grandkids ready. And then other times we're having family dinners. So that's a time for us. And she has here at family dinners and having a good time. And so we're glad to see her. But we do talk among ourselves about how wonderful it would be to have her at least nominated. Winning would be outstanding. She stands with DiCaprio to stay on the same scene with that incredibly talented actor. DiCaprio, I think this is his best acting job. I saw Titanic, and I've seen, Gangs of New York. He did well. Revenant, I think that was, to me, was my favorite, what he did in that movie. And oh, by the way, some of the people that behind the cameras that worked on Revenant worked on this movie. I think this was Leo DiCaprio's best acting job. And Robert De Niro has a much larger role in this. He is very much involved throughout the movie. Those three should get some recognition at the Academy Awards.
In our previous interview, you told me you were a 16-year-old boy when you drove your grandmother from luncheons with her friends, and you felt that they had been telling stories about this. And I know you became chief, which is a major, major accomplishment, but then to think that this 16-year-old boy eventually walked the red carpet of the very story that your grandmother and her friends were talking about.
If you had a chance, go check out, and get on the internet, the story of the Osages. There's 6 Osages that went from our homes in Missouri to France in the late 1820s, and they wandered around France for years until the good people of the city of Montauban took up a collection and paid their passage way back to the Osage country. A good relationship with southern France, Montauban and the surrounding areas. And that was discussed when we were over there, how many of us carry French names or influence. My middle name is spelled Mongrain, but it's pronounced not Mongrain. Some Osages, one branch does that. But my side of the family calls it Maugrain. We have Revellettes. We have Choteaux. Not the that are I guess they're related to the Cherokee Choteaux. We have Bollingers, Terriens, Revolvers. We have a lot of explorer and trader families, and so when I used to talk, and hopefully to talk again to the people in Missouri, I always say, you want to know where the French explorers went? Well, that's us. I'd say over half of our tribe is French in one way or another. That was discussed while we were hanging out in southern France. And in fact, Tali Redcorn, who played the medicine man, he mentioned that when he was getting ready to pray for us all. Because he actually is a man of prayer in our tribe. He mentioned how we returned to France. And now here we are after this period since 1830s when our people were here before. So I thought that was an interesting connection that they mentioned.
Absolutely. I like what you said, hanging out in southern France. You were hanging out in the French Riviera. Such a beautiful area.
Well, you know, John, I didn't even get to the beach because they had us in such a tight schedule. I saw it. It was like 50 yards away, the water. The yachts there were, I was told how much some of those cost. I don't know if it's true or not. It was unbelievable. The people that were participating and do participate, it's just, I say it's a different world. It's lovely. I mean, the breads there are bread baskets and croissants and butter. My gosh, and fruit plates. And there's a lot of that going on. Really nice. But I was just there just for a few days with my lovely wife, and we saw a little bit of that world.
Okay, one detail that might people be interested in, when you had dinner, like when you were with De Niro and the others having dinner, what did they serve you? What was on the entree?
Well, that's interesting. When we went to dinner, and I need to also say that Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell and some of his team were participants in some of the festivities. And the way they handle that is plates are incredible food or salads first, and you share off that plate and that's passed around, and it goes all the way through the entrees and dessert. And while the people are having dessert, people at different tables start getting up and start going to other tables, and I took it as something that they do, that people that go to those kind of dinners, and they sit there, they visit, and people start just moving around table to table. But it's not like they bring a plate and you just eat, and a waitress comes by or waiter comes by and picks it up. It's they pass around. Everybody passes around the plates, and you take what you want, and then eventually someone will pick it up. I don't know what you'd say about the food. I mean, the food was like I never had before. It was really good. Really good food. Yeah.
They serve beef or chicken or what?
Both. And if you wanted to be a vegan, they have that option too. Mm-hmm. So when they pass around these various plates, you have your choice. You can eat salads and that's it, or you can eat and vegetables. God, the vegetables were great.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm just pleased that you're talking to us about it and the wonderful experience and the attention that it will bring to the Osage Nation. And I'm sure you're happy about that because people probably didn't know about it, but there'll be curious minds.
I told, when I got back and said, okay, everybody in southern France, they're all talking French. And I kept hearing the word Osage. Then I kept hearing Fairfax, Gray Horse. I said, folks, as we go through the award system, heading to the Academy Awards, everybody is looking at you. And we need to find a way to fund your initiatives. And I'm going to ask the Osage legislature, the Osage Congress, to put some money into our Osage Foundation so people here can apply for grants to develop this community. Because as you saw, John, the community has a need of development in a organized cultural, historical way. And also the Osage Nation, our government, has purchased recently a plot of land, and our intention is to reconstruct the train station
Okay.
that was during the filming built here in Pahuska, and it says Fairfax on it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see the movie, you'll see that train station has an important role in the movie. And so we want to rebuild it and reinforce it because it is built as a prop. We're going to reinforce it and place it on this new property in Fairfax, assist the community in their efforts. Osage Nation will not be creating an area or redoing the town, but we have that property and another where we can fit in with what Joe Connor's doing at the Tall Chief Theater, and hopefully he'll get a grant. He's already got some, because we also, away from the main street, are working with the children and family of the Maria and Marjorie Tall Chief, great ballerinas, to acquire their old home up on a hill on the west side of town, on a hill there,
Of Fairfax.
and the Tall Chief Mansion, and renovate it. People are already coming to Fairfax.
Yep.
And Lieutenant Governor Pennell has been there, and he wants to work with the community as well. So we have the state wanting to work with them, the people there want to work, the nation wants to work together. They could really, really change for the better that community, and also make Oklahoma a better tourist destination, because we have that, and we have Reed Drummond over here in Pahuska,
Yep.
25 miles away. We're building new casino, hotel, our museum, the oldest tribal museum in the country. We have that here. We want to expand that significantly. So we have a lot of plans here. We're carrying them out.
Yep.
Not talking about them.
You said that you bought land in Fairfax to place the train station there?
Yeah, it's the train station that appears in the movie.
Yeah.
And so Apple allowed us to work with them on taking it apart, but it's in storage.
Great. That's great for Fairfax and for you, and I think it's honorable that you in Pahuska will invest in Fairfax as well. So we should say the film will be released exclusively in theaters October 6th and then streaming globally on Apple TV Plus. And of course, all of us can hardly wait to see it for sure. So thank you, Chief. I appreciate your willingness to do this follow-up after your great experience, and we obviously will let you know what we thought about the film.
Sure, John. We'll call any time. I really enjoy talking with you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
All right. We'll see you.
Yep.